think as Americans, we get told all the time, well, when something's good, it's God's blessing.
Mhm.
So therefore, if something bad, it's God's curse. And the Bible's pretty
Oh.
clear about it rains on the just and unjust. And sometimes it it really crushes people to their core is to think that well, it's like a church growing. Oh, well, the Lord's blessing us because we're growing. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like you can't measure things by what's happening to you. That was the problem with Job's friend. They
Oh.
they they thought God was cursing him because something bad happened. It's God's like, that is horrible theology. It's not just you're getting to your point. It's not that you're just signing a sheet of paper and you're moving out of houses. It's crushed dreams,
Mhm.
crushed activities, all these things that you're used to are all gone. And you've got to have a healthy reset as a person. But even as a Christian, you have to have a reset of like, wait a minute, what is this world? What are we living in? This world's broken. And how am I supposed to live in this broken world? Because I thought some people think, oh, well, if you do this, this, and this, God will bless you accordingly. And it's like, it's bad
Oh.
theology. It's bad
Mhm.
theology, and people get challenged with their bad theology because I think as
Mhm.
Americans, we get told all the time, well, when something's good, it's God's blessing.
Mhm.
So therefore, if something bad, it's God's curse. And the Bible's pretty
Oh.
clear about it rains on the just and unjust. And sometimes it it really crushes people to their core is to think that well, it's like a church growing. Oh, well, the Lord's blessing us because we're growing. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like you can't measure things by what's happening to you. That was the problem with Job's friend. They
Oh.
they they thought God was cursing him because something bad happened. It's God's like, that is horrible theology.
Mhm. Oh, Todd, it is so prevalent in, in the church world. If you do this and do this and do this, then God will do this and this and this. And it's this teaching people how to live in this legalistic mindset and that God owes me something if I do more, be more, say more, do more, be more,
Mm.
better, whatever. And the reality is that is what is causing so much disappointment in Christians, people who are raised up in that. And then when they experience a major trauma like divorce is, it's it just pulls your theology, your grounding right from under you. And the Bible talks about not building your house on the sand. Well, we built it on the sand because
Right.
we built it on the belief system that God owed us something if we did certain things. But there is no doing in the relationship with God. He already did it all. And so it's just it's a devastating belief system, and it can really, destroy your walk with God unless you let him to rebuild you and your mindset. Well, I went through a divorce from an individual that was a wonderful man of God, an amazing father, and he was so close to my family. We had multiple businesses together, and those businesses unfortunately were just too much weight on him, and he kind of had what I would call like a, I don't know, like a breakdown, and just wasn't himself anymore. And there was, abusive and that kind of thing. And so the Lord, I would never have ended it. I was praying and praying and praying and praying, y'all, and saying, oh God, please heal him. Oh God, fix this thing. Oh Lord, you could do it. And I remember the first time I ever heard God loud. I mean, not like an impression on your heart, but like a voice. No, stop. And I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, but Lord, I did all the things. I'm praying. I have the Power of a Praying Wife book right here. I mean, like, seriously, I did.
Yeah.
And he said, no more and stop. And at that moment, he cut off all of the feelings I had toward this person, the feelings of I have to make this work. It has to stay together. It was not healthy for me. And
Yeah.
it was within 24 hours that the police made him move out.
What did I do wrong? What could I do better? Right. And almost no divorces are 100% someone's fault and zero somebody else's, right? There's a,
Right.
it may be 50-50, 60-40, 95-5, but
Right.
there's always a part we can own on our side.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's also that freeing part to say, it doesn't mean that what I did is fully responsible because they have their part too. And so what you were saying is you had to really reset and see the difference between, yes, I did the right thing as much as I could. I'm sure you failed in some areas, but you don't have to own the burden of that marriage dissipating.
Right. And you don't have to carry the shame of, oh, because I did this. Oh my goodness, how much shame did I put upon my family to be the one divorced person? And
Right.
and then it was just awful, that thought process.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, somebody else made choices too, and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can't make them do anything. So yeah, that was the beginning of the reset.
So, all right, so go a little bit further down the road. Like, so, I don't want to jump all the way to your book and your ministry, but
Yeah.
there's got to be like you've defined it as disappointment. Like it's a great phrase, disappointment. Like you thought X, and you're that's what disappointment is when you have an expectation that
Mhm.
isn't met. And then so it's like, do you live in the disappointment or do you live in that you need to check your expectations?
Give me vision and hope and dream for the future. I think he's so kind to do that during the midst of loss because he's not going to leave you there. There's more. And he began to speak to me about my real name, which is Victory,
Mhm.
but and what he calls me. But what I felt like and what the whole divorce made me feel like was like this small, and I felt like a victim. And
Mhm.
so my reality was a victim, and where he had me going was victory. And so he was, pulling me to that space. And in pulling me to that space, he was showing me more things about hope for the future and what that looked like, what I looked like. And so I think that I'm moving along that path. It was a journey from victim to victory, but from feeling as though I was small and insignificant and unworthy. And I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but the Lord asked me to empty my hands of unworthy so that I could receive, because now my hands are open,
Yeah.
victory and
Yeah.
receive his promises and receive his hope and future for me. But as long as I was in that space of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, etc., then I couldn't receive his promises for me.
Yeah. But also, I think it's semi-healthy to acknowledge that we are a victim of living in a broken world. Like we don't live in the Garden of Eden. We do live in a broken world. Therefore, broken things happen,
Yeah,
and our marriages got broken. And that is
right.
true. We are a victim of that, but it's not the same kind of victim. That's the negative victim, right?
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, there's a victim, like a person has been victimized. You were robbed in an alley, you've been victimized, okay?
Mhm.
And there's a difference between that and taking on a victim mindset.
Yeah.
So woe is me.
Yeah.
And why bother? Nothing matters anyway. I mean, that's the place we do a lot of damage. That's the place where people end their own lives and harm themselves, and so there's a balance there between learning how to face disappointment and, I feel like the Lord's given me kind of a picture of a valley of disappointment. So
Mhm.
it's a valley, it's low, there are hills on the side, and here we are, and we can walk through it with him, kind of like that Pilgrim's Progress. There's a road, and then there's two paths, and
Yeah.
there's three paths, and they break off, but we're walking through that valley with him, and it's dark.
If you like this content, then subscribe for even more resources, fun, laughter, and sound advice for Christians adventuring in unyoked living. Not just divorce recovery, but for brave men and women who are growing and going and living a life on mission. Blessings.